Hello and welcome back for another Torah Tuesday. I'm Dr. Carmen Imes, Associate Professor of Old Testament at Talbot School of Theology at Biola University. Today we're finishing chapter 24 of Exodus, and at the end I have a special announcement about what's coming for the rest of the summer. So we're picking things up in chapter 24, verse 12, and on through verse 18. I'm reading from my own translation from the Hebrew. Yahweh said to Moses, "Ascend to me on the mountain and stay there, so I may give you the stone tablets and the Torah and the command, which I have written for their instruction." So Moses got up, and Joshua his assistant, and Moses ascended the mountain of the deity. But to the elders he said, "Sit here for us in this place until we return to you. See, Aaron and Hur are with you. Whoever has issues may approach them." So Moses ascended the mountain, and the cloud covered the mountain. The glory of Yahweh settled upon Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it for 6 days. He called to Moses on the 7th day from the midst of the cloud. The appearance of the glory of Yahweh was like a consuming fire on top of the mountain in the eyes of the Israelites. But Moses entered the midst of the cloud, and he ascended the mountain. Moses was on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. Okay, so we have talked about how Moses ascends the mountain, or is said to ascend the mountain 7 times in this chapter. That might account for the repetition of the word ascend in the section that I just read. We just heard it 4 times in these verses. Although last week we saw that the elders of Israel were able to see God in some fashion, they at least saw his feet, they could not go all the way up the mountain into the presence of God. Moses alone could approach the divine presence. God is about to give Moses a written record of the Decalogue, or 10 Commandments, in stone. So the 10 Commandments were given in chapter 20, but they were given orally. All of the people who were gathered at the base of the mountain heard God giving the 10 Commandments verbally. So they heard it, but it wasn't in writing yet. This is the place where the covenant has now been ratified and it's being put into writing. Stone tablets with the covenant stipulations are an essential ingredient of any ancient Near Eastern treaty. So when Moses comes down the mountain with the tablets, that will signal clearly to the entire community that they've entered formally into an agreement with Yahweh. Did you notice that when Moses ascends the mountain the rest of the way, that Joshua comes along with him as his assistant? Joshua was a military leader in chapter 17 when the Amalekites attacked them in the wilderness, and here he's Moses' protege. It's very important that we're told that Joshua is partway up the mountain with Moses, because this is going to indicate that he was not at the base of the mountain when the people worshiped the golden calf. So the duration of time in which Moses is on the mountain is 40 days and 40 nights. And during that time is when the golden calf episode happens. And that we're not going to read about that until chapter 32. 32 is when he finally comes down from this stint. Chapter 24, we're just setting up the ascent. And then 25 through 31 is all the information that Moses gets about the tabernacle on the mountain, including the actual stone tablets being inscribed, and then he'll come down and deliver those to the people. And that's when the golden calf has happened. So it's very important that Joshua isn't around for the golden calf, because that qualifies him to be a spiritual leader going forward. Joshua only reappears in chapter 32, verse 17, on Moses' way down the mountain. So we're not sure how much further Joshua goes, but he's not with the elders, and he's not with Moses. He goes partway up, and Moses catches up with him on the way down. Now, where are the elders when Moses is on top of the mountain? It sounds from verse 14 like they're still partway up the mountain, where they ate with God and drank with God and had visions of God, because he says, "Sit here for us in this place until we return to you." And there's been no indication that they all went down the mountain. However, how are people supposed to approach them with problems, and how are they supposed to decide things in Moses' absence if they're halfway up the mountain? Furthermore, Aaron is among them. Aaron and Hur are with the elders, And Aaron's the one who builds the golden calf in chapter 32. So clearly at some point they went down the mountain. But this chapter is not interested in telling us the descents. It only tells us the ascents. And so what's missing here is the going down the mountain after the fellowship meal with God. And then Yahweh says to Moses, okay, come on back up. So maybe Joshua's even hanging out at the same level where the elders were before. We don't know, but we just know that eventually they get down the mountain because that's where the shenanigans happens. Now there's an interesting statement here that Moses makes. He says, I translate it, whoever has issues may approach them. In Hebrew, it's whoever Baal words may approach to them. It's a strange statement. Baal can be translated as Baal, the god of Canaan, but it can also mean Lord or Master. And perhaps here it's the sense of possessor, whoever has or whoever is the possessor of words. Devarim can mean words or issues or matters. So whoever's got stuff they need to talk about, they can go to the elders, and the elders will help adjudicate any problems while Moses is out of the camp. And Aaron and Hur can help with any particularly difficult cases. So Moses enters the cloud, and God's glory settles on the top of the mountain. All the people down below can see this. The word settled is vayishkan, which is a temporary tabernacle for the divine presence that anticipates the building of the permanent but portable tabernacle, which is called a mishkan. So vayishkan and mishkan. A mishkan is the noun form of the verb for settled. God is eventually going to settle in their midst. We see that word in chapter 25, verse 9. But here, God's glory is settling on top of the mountain temporarily. It's so interesting that Moses waits 6 full days before God starts speaking to him. That would have been a long and quiet week. I don't know if Moses enjoyed that or if he was a little antsy to find out what is the message that God has for him. But God speaks on the 7th day. And this pattern of 6 days plus 1, 6 days, and then on the 7th day clearly mirrors the creation account, where God creates for 6 days and then rests on the 7th day. I would argue that the book of Exodus is a creation story. It's the creation of a new nation. Just as God brought order in Genesis and created the whole cosmos, so in Exodus, he's bringing order and creating a new nation. In Genesis, we get the creation of a cosmic temple in which God takes up residence and rests on his throne. In Exodus, we have the creation of an earthly tabernacle where God's presence will come to rest among his people. So the fact that God waits until day 7 to begin speaking seems to indicate that what he's saying will participate in leading people into Sabbath rest. And because the content of his speech is instructions for how to build the tabernacle, the timing seems very important. When God's presence rests among them, they can truly find rest. Moses is on the mountain for 40 days and nights. This is a typical period of testing in the Bible. Here we might suggest that the test is a test of the Israelites. How will they handle the absence of their leader? We'll find out in chapter 32 that they don't handle it so well. If we're wondering if Israel's going to remain faithful, the answer is not encouraging. So that brings us to the end of chapter 24. The covenant has been ratified. Moses is now in the presence of God. And that brings us on the cusp of reading the tabernacle instructions. For the next number of weeks, probably about 10 weeks, we are going to take a break from moving through Exodus for Torah Tuesday because I've been working in the commentary on chapters 32, 33, and 34, and I'm just about finished with 34, and then I'm going to circle back to work on 25 to 31. So rather than hop all the way over to 32 with you, I'm going to wait and do something different this summer while I catch up on my commentary work, and then we'll carry on in the fall, beginning with chapter 25. So in the meantime, the plan is to do a series on top resources. Lots of you have noticed the books around me in my library, and you've asked me for recommendations or for a bit of a tour. So my producer and I decided that now is a great time to do that. In the coming weeks, I'll be telling you each week about my top 2 or 3 resources in a number of different categories. If there's a category of books behind me that you would like me to talk about, feel free to make a request. Otherwise, I will proceed with telling you about my top commentaries for Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, top books on Old Testament theology, and that sort of thing. So follow me, and it will be hard on your book budget, I'm sure, but hopefully it will be helpful to those of you who want to keep digging deeper into the biblical text. And for now, have a great week.